The headlines shook the world. Disturbing, chilling, and utterly unexplainable. These are the cases that had the public on the edge of their seats in 2024 and now in 2025. From unsolved mysteries to twisted crimes that left us questioning everything. So get ready to dive into the most unsettling and talked about cases of the year. Buckle up. It's time to face the darkness. The Jones family case. The tragic story of Michael Jones unfolded in ways that no one could have imagined. Behind the facade of a normal family, a dark and twisted truth was buried, one that would shake the community to its core. It all began with the disappearance of his wife, Casey, and their 4 children, a case that seemed shrouded in mystery. But as the investigation unraveled, it became clear that Michael was the mastermind behind it all, orchestrating a web of lies that left everyone, including his own family, believing that Casey was still alive. For weeks, Michael played a chilling game, using Casey's phone to send texts and post on social media, maintaining the illusion that she was merely missing, not gone. As he texted and posted on her behalf, he convinced her friends and family that she was still alive. But behind closed doors, he had already taken her life. The question that loomed heavy was, why? The detectives pressed Michael, trying to understand his motive, his reasoning behind the horrific murders of his children. His chilling confession detailed the acts in disturbingly calm terms. First came Cameron, whom Michael strangled with his bare hands in the middle of the night, his cries muffled by his father's grip. Then came Preston, whom Michael murdered with a zip tie, forcing him into a bathtub to drown. With a detachment that sent shivers down the detectives' spines, Michael moved to his 2 little girls, Mary and Ayanna. He drowned them one by one, the terror in their eyes fading as they fought for their lives. But what made it even more horrific was Michael's reasoning. He didn't just kill to silence them. He killed to keep the lie alive, to maintain the charade that Casey was still with him. He told the detectives that he couldn't bear to let anyone know what he had done, so he kept the bodies of his children hidden, stinking in the van as he tried to escape the consequences of his actions. The plot thickened when Michael revealed that he had coached his ex-wife Sarah on what to say when law enforcement came calling, ensuring she played her part in his game of deception. It was a strategy of manipulation and fear, one that was too intricate for most to understand, until now. But as the confession continued, something darker began to emerge. Michael wasn't just trying to keep up appearances. There was a sense of fear that gripped him, something that made him so consumed by his own lies that he couldn't stop. Was it guilt? Was it a desire to protect his children from something he believed to be worse than death? The chilling truth seemed to be something more complex, more terrifying than anyone could imagine. The police, grappling with the depths of his depravity, wondered, was Michael a man pushed to the edge by his own mental fragility? Or was there something much more sinister at play? As the trial went on and the defense presented claims of mental illness, the courtroom was filled with tension. Experts testified, but none could quite explain the evil that had taken over Michael Jones. Finally, after 3 long years, the jury came to their decision, sentencing him to death. But even as the sentence was read out, questions remained. Michael's defense argued that mental illness had clouded his judgment, that voices in his head had led him down this dark path. But in the face of such horror, the jury felt that justice could only come in the form of death. The case of Michael Jones closed with a grim sense of finality, but still, many couldn't help but ask, was this simply the result of a fragile mind unraveling? Or was there something else, something darker, driving Michael to do the unthinkable? As the years go by, this chilling story continues to haunt, leaving behind an eerie silence and a trail of unanswered questions. Manije Starin case. Joseph Jorgensen, 40, has been charged with the murder and dismemberment of his girlfriend, Manijay Starin, in Maplewood, Minnesota. Her remains were discovered in coolers at a storage facility in June 2023. Starin, a mother of 3, had struggled with addiction and was set to enter treatment in April 2023, but went missing instead. Police learned of a history of domestic violence between Starin and Jorgensen, including marks on her neck and a previous choking incident. Surveillance footage revealed Starin fleeing her apartment on April 21st, only to be pulled back by Jorgensen, after which she was never seen again. In the following days, Jorgensen was repeatedly seen entering and exiting her apartment, carrying bags. Investigators later found blood and disturbing signs of a violent struggle inside. Further evidence showed Jorgensen had used Starin's food stamp card and bought cleaning supplies. He also made unsettling Google searches, such as jugular and lime for soil, likely to aid in body decomposition. Threatening messages from Jorgensen to Starin were also uncovered. The case took an even darker turn when police learned Jorgensen had been connected to another missing woman, Fanta Zayavong, who disappeared in July 2021. As Jorgensen remains in custody, authorities continue to investigate his ties to these missing women. Linda O'Keefe case. On July 6, 1973, 11-year-old Linda O'Keefe left home for summer school in Newport Beach, California. She wore a dress her mother had made for her hair in a ponytail, and set off, unaware that this would be her last day. A shy girl with a love for painting, crafts, and piano, Linda had a gentle soul. Her mother, Barbara, recalled how hard it was to console her when her pet cat died recently. Linda loved to bask in the California sun and spend time at the beach, yet something dark was lurking. That afternoon, after calling her mom for a ride home, Linda was seen talking to a man in a turquoise van. Less than an hour later, she vanished. By nightfall, her family was desperate. The search for Linda went on into the early morning hours, but it wasn't until a day later, when a local architect stumbled upon her body, that the nightmare was confirmed. She had been brutally murdered. For years, Linda's case remained cold, until advances in DNA technology reignited the investigation. In 2017, a genetic profile of the killer was developed, and in 2019, more than 45 years later, a breakthrough came. James Allen Neal, a man with a dark past, was arrested for Linda's murder. But just when justice seemed within reach, Neal died in 2020 before facing trial. Despite his death, the O'Keefe family found some semblance of closure, though the loss would forever haunt them, especially her mother. For Linda, justice was delayed, but not forgotten. This tragic case seems filled with twists and dark revelations. The investigation into Brittany Litz's death was filled with chilling discoveries, from the signs of a failed robbery to the unexpected and deeply troubling personal secrets that came to light. The confusion and mystery surrounding her death, particularly the evidence of strangulation and a fatal stab wound, along with a troubling injury, suggested a more complicated narrative. The fact that investigators initially considered the case a robbery gone wrong, only to uncover deeper layers involving Brittany's personal life, highlights how complex real-life cases can be. The story of Terry and the potential relationship dynamics at play introduces the idea that personal connections may hold crucial answers. With each new lead, the investigators tried to piece together the fragmented truths. The community, grieving and confused, waited for closure, but it was clear that this was no ordinary case. The investigative process, the potential misdirection, and the many unanswered questions speak to the complex nature of both family dynamics and how deeply hidden secrets can surface in unexpected ways. Julie Minogue. A tragic incident unfolded in Milford, Connecticut, where 42-year-old Yan DT of Roxbury was charged with the murder of 40-year-old Julie Minogue. The attack, witnessed by her teenage son, shocked the community. Authorities also charged DT with risk of injury, reckless endangerment, and violating a protection order and restraining order. The restraining order had been granted just 5 days before the killing. On December 6th, a 911 call was made by Minogue's 17-year-old son, who reported hearing his mother being assaulted inside their home. He had been woken by screams and rushed downstairs, where he allegedly saw DT holding an axe and his mother lying on the floor covered in blood. The teenager claimed DT was yelling, "You didn't believe me!" before the boy fled upstairs, called 911, and jumped out of his bedroom window. He was met by police responding to the emergency call. When officers arrived, they found Minogue's lifeless body on the kitchen floor, surrounded by blood. A large axe was discovered on the stove. Her 3-year-old son was also inside the home, but remained unharmed. Both children are now in the care of family members. DT fled the scene before law enforcement arrived, but a suspect matching his description was captured on a ring camera walking near the scene with an axe. He was eventually arrested in West Haven. Before his capture, DT reportedly called his mother and confessed to killing Minogue, according to court documents. Minogue had lived in fear for her life, court records revealed. In a restraining order filed on December 1st, she wrote, "I don't feel I should be subjected to this abuse any longer." She also reported receiving harassing text messages from DT in the days leading up to the incident. This was not DT's first encounter with the law. In November 2019, he was arrested for assaulting Minogue, and a protective order was issued at that time. Before her death, Minogue had made desperate pleas for protection. In court testimony, she said, "He says his mission in life is to ruin my life, so he basically wants to kill me." Despite these warnings, authorities failed to act in time. Just 3 weeks before her murder, Minogue had reported her fears to the police. The officer handling her case, Scott Nain, prepared an arrest warrant for DT, but it was returned by a prosecutor seeking additional information. Unfortunately, the warrant was never resubmitted. After the homicide, Nain was placed on leave pending an internal investigation. He later resigned in July following the inquiry into his inaction. Minogue's family expressed outrage at the system's failure to protect her and announced plans to file a lawsuit against the city and the police department. Julie Minogue's sister, Allison Barrett-Corin, described her as a devoted mother to her 3 children, Nicholas, Sean, and 3-year-old Luke. In a GoFundMe page set up by the family, Barrett-Corin wrote that Minogue was a victim of domestic violence who had tried multiple times to keep herself and her children safe. The fundraiser aims to raise $100,000 to support the children's education and future. She cared for them with ease and love, the description reads. DT was arraigned at the Connecticut Superior Court in Milford on December 7th and is currently being held on a $5 million bond. Prosecutors have requested a DNA sample from DT to compare it with evidence found on the murder weapon. As the legal proceedings continue, Minogue's death serves as a harrowing reminder of the dangers of domestic violence and the critical need for timely intervention by authorities. Katrina Fouts. A chilling case unfolded in Noblesville, Indiana, where Katrina F.Z. and her friend Terry Hopkins were charged with the murder of Katrina's husband, David Michael F.Z., using a poisonous mushroom. Authorities were able to unravel the crime through cell phone location data and a string of suspicious internet searches that exposed the duo's deadly scheme. David Michael F.Z., a 50-year-old Salesforce senior consultant and technology architect, was found in a ditch on April 24, 2020, by a dog walker. His pockets were turned inside out, and both his wallet and phone were missing. He also had cuts on his left hand and abrasions on his right foot, suggesting that he had been dragged after his death. An autopsy initially failed to determine the cause of death, prompting the Hamilton County coroner to send stomach content samples to a Purdue University specialist. Toxicology tests revealed the presence of a highly poisonous mushroom, lilimkedum, in David's stomach. Dr. M. Catherine Aim explained that this mushroom contains muscarine, a potent toxin that can cause symptoms ranging from excessive sweating and salivation to slowed heartbeat, respiratory distress, and even coma. A lethal dose could come from just 2 to 15 slices of the mushroom. The toxin's 8-hour half-life explained why it initially went undetected during the autopsy. When informed of her husband's death, Katrina FZ quickly claimed he was a violent alcoholic and suggested that he might have taken his own life. She alleged that he had left their home the night before his disappearance and hinted at a confrontation with a man who had threatened his life over an alleged affair. However, police cleared these supposed suspects quickly. Investigators grew increasingly suspicious of Katrina. She never reported her husband missing or made any attempts to contact him after his disappearance. Her internet search history proved damning, as it included queries on how to pass a lie detector test, Indiana homicide laws, and crime of passion statutes. Authorities also found a screenshot of the deadly destroying angel mushroom, captioned as one of the most dangerous plants known to humanity. Further evidence emerged in text messages between Katrina and Terry Hopkins, a retired Richmond police officer and lifelong friend of hers. On the morning after David's death, Katrina texted Hopkins, thanking him for topping off her car fluids and taking care of some other things. Hopkins had made suspicious purchases at hardware stores, including tarps, hydraulic lifts, zip ties, utility knives, and cleaning supplies, splitting the transactions between different locations to avoid suspicion. Both Katrina and Hopkins were charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and failure to report human remains. Authorities speculated on their motive, noting that David had a history of domestic violence and was facing legal issues after a domestic battery charge in September. He had violated a no-contact order shortly after, but was in a treatment facility for alcoholism when his court hearing was postponed. In April 2022, Hamilton County Judge William Hughes sentenced Katrina FZ to 34 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder and an additional year in county jail for failing to report human remains. The sentences are being served concurrently. Terry Hopkins, 64, who faced similar charges, died in February 2022 before his trial could commence. The tragic case remains a grim reminder of betrayal, premeditation, and the devastating consequences of unchecked violence. If you found this case intriguing and want to stay updated, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Together, let's keep pushing for justice.